Still struggling with infertility, huh? Pretty pathetic. Our daughter's got a beautiful body, and she's a genius, you know.
Talk about a miserable old lady. You're so finished as a woman. I never imagined they'd chase me down here just to say this. Their childishness is astounding. Without a word, I just quietly finished my coffee. Mason was the one who left me for a mistress back then. Seeing their craziness after all this time just blows my mind. To think I was married to someone like him feels like a dark chapter in my life. The real victims here are the kids. What kind of revenge should I take on these two, who are clearly out of their minds? They deserve to suffer more than I did. My name is Katie Anderson. Mason, my husband of 45, was a senior at the company where I started, having joined a year before me. He was so competent at his job that at first, I thought he had been working there much longer. Our department got along well, and we often had drinks together. One time, I ended up sitting next to him, which led to us talking more. I fell for him quickly because he was kind and good at his job. One day, he asked me out for dinner, just the two of us. It turned out he felt the same way, and he asked me to be his girlfriend on our way back from dinner. Of course, I had no reason to refuse, and that's how our relationship started. Things went smoothly, and without any major arguments, a year passed by in a flash. On our first anniversary, he proposed, and we decided to get married. I was 23, just a year into the job when he said he wanted his wife to stay at home, so I quit my job. Initially, married life was fun, and I thought I wanted to be with him forever. After getting married, the pressure to have kids started, especially from his parents. They, and even he said,
"The sooner the better."
So we started trying for a baby not long after the wedding. We didn't rush to the hospital at first, thinking it would happen eventually. But it wasn't that simple, and the pressure from his parents got stronger. My mother-in-law would say, "You both are young, just try a bit harder. I want to hold my grandchild soon." I was constantly pressured, mostly by my mother-in-law, and Mason didn't know she was pressuring me. After reading an article saying stress is bad, I talked to Mason about his mom.
My mom? She doesn't say anything to me. Maybe you're overthinking it, and that's stressing you out.
Maybe she doesn't say anything to you, but I get calls every day. It's really tough. Can you talk to her?
Well, I guess I could try.
The next day she called, thinking Mason had said something to her. I expected an apology, but instead, what I got was, "You snitched to my son, you awful woman. Just have a kid and then get a divorce. Get out, you useless barren woman." She went on like this for 2 hours. Fed up, I suggested to Mason we get checked at a hospital. But he was reluctant and said,
"Why don't you go alone? Infertility is usually the woman's issue. I'm fine. We've been trying for a year and a half. It's probably you." He refused to even consider that the infertility could affect either partner. I gave up and went to the hospital alone. The tests showed I was fine, and I showed Mason the result, urging him to get tested too. He insisted. "Then why aren't we pregnant yet? It's definitely not me." Even after telling his mom, she was sarcastic. "Maybe the test is wrong. I got pregnant with Mason right away." After that, Mason started coming home late more often. I visited the hospital multiple times over 6 months.
I couldn't talk to my parents or friends about our situation. It had been just 2 years since getting married. The pressure from his parents and Mason blaming took a toll. When I felt I couldn't take it anymore, I talked to my doctor. The doctor said,
"Oh, I had no idea you had been going through all that. I'm sorry to hear that. Fertility issues should involve both partners, but I guess it's not really an option for your husband to get tested."
I didn't know how to respond to the doctor. Encouraging me, the doctor added,
"Don't rush. Some couples take over 3 years to get pregnant."
All I could tell the doctor was that I'll talk to my husband when he gets home that night. When I talked to Mason that night, he said something shocking.
"Turns out it was your fault after all. I can have kids, so we are getting a divorce."
I was confused. What does he mean he can have kids? Divorce? I demanded an explanation.
"Well, I met a really cute girl at a bar, and I've been dating her. You couldn't get pregnant, and my mom suggested switching women. And guess what? She got pregnant in just 6 months. Maybe she and I are just more compatible."
That's cheating. We've only been married for 2 years. I've been dealing with the fertility struggle, and your mom's nagging all by myself.
It might seem like cheating from the outside, but isn't it your fault for not getting pregnant? Anyway, I will give you alimony. All the effort for nothing, huh?
And so, we divorced. I got all of his savings, $30,000, but it left a huge void in my heart. On the day I was leaving, he brought that woman, Helen, home as if on purpose. She was flashy and 6 years younger than him. Looking me over, she said, "Poor thing, losing your beloved to me. We'll be happy together, all 3 of us." Her words pierced my heart. Holding back tears, I left for my parents' house. This ordeal led me to seek mental health care at a clinic my parents had connections with. 16 years have passed since then, and I'm living a happy life now. Today, I arrived early for a meeting and was killing time on a nearby bench when a man stopped in front of me. Looking up, I realized it was Mason.
"Oh, I thought it might be you, Katie. Never thought I'd see you again."
"What are you doing here?"
"I recently moved to this town. Never thought you'd be living here too."
Yes, like he said. I moved to the next state over, trying to avoid even the slightest chance of bumping into him. Yet, here we are, meeting by chance. I was so shocked, I couldn't even speak. I didn't want anything to do with him. I went into the cafe I was supposed to meet someone at and tried to calm down with a coffee. Then, someone tapped my shoulder, and it was Mason and Helen, and a teenage girl named Haley. I wondered if they followed me here, or if it was just coincidence. I heard Mason saying to Helen,
"See? I told you she'd be here."
So they must have seen me enter. I asked them what they wanted, and they just smirked and said,
"Still struggling with infertility, huh? Pretty pathetic. Our daughter's got a beautiful body, and she's a genius, you know."
"Talk about a miserable old lady. You're so finished as a woman." I couldn't believe they followed me just to say that. Their childishness is astounding. I didn't reply, just quietly finished my coffee. They laughed loudly, mocking my silence. Their daughter was just on her phone, not paying any attention. That's when the people I had been waiting for arrived.
"Sorry for making you wait. It was Pam's fault we were late."
"No, Dad. You were the one who was late. Who was these people anyway?" It was my current husband and daughter. I remarried 9 years ago to Nathan Anderson. My attending doctor, who helped me through my tough times. And we have a daughter, Pam, in her first year of high school. Nathan proposed when he saw I was getting better, wanting to support me forever. We married after dating for 4 years, influenced by my then 7-year-old daughter, wanting him as her dad. I decided to get back at Mason and his wife. Let me introduce you to my daughter, a high school freshman too.
What? But she's...
I've seen her before. They started looking something up on their phones, then back and forth between their device and my daughter.
You're Pam, the high school model, right? I've been your big fan. You're incredibly beautiful and smart. But why are you here?
Because she's my daughter. She got scouted on her way back from a high school orientation. She's beautiful, isn't she? We're about to have dinner as a family. Can you leave us alone? But Mason and them wouldn't leave. I didn't want to argue in front of my daughter in the cafe. Just as I was wondering what to do, Haley said, "Can we please just go? This is getting embarrassing." Thanks to her, Mason and Helen reluctantly left the cafe. Over dinner, my husband asked,
Was that your ex?
I told him about the accidental meeting before the cafe and how they followed me inside to mock me. He suggested we move again. Even my daughter was okay with transferring schools given the situation. But we would have to wait a bit to arrange everything since we needed to explain to Nathan's workplace. 3 weeks later, while I was doing housework, someone showed up at my door. Looking at the intercom monitor, I found out it was Mason. How did he find out where we live? I didn't want to answer, so I just stayed inside, watching him through the monitor, not leaving, just standing there. I felt scared. Then he left something that looks like a piece of paper in the mailbox and left. Slowly and tentatively, I looked at what it was. It was his phone number with a note saying,
Call me, or I will visit like today again.
Sending chills down my spine. I immediately contacted Nathan and told him what happened and about the note.
I'm off the day after tomorrow. Let's call him together then and find out how he got our address. After, we'll go to the police.
But there was no guarantee Mason wouldn't come before them. I was scared to be alone, so I asked a close friend to come over. Mason didn't show up, and life went on as usual. On Nathan's day off, we called Mason. He answered after a few rings, and we put him on speakerphones and recorded the call.
Katie, I'm so happy you called. I wanted to ask you something, so I went to your house, but I guess you weren't home.
Answer my question first. How did you know where we live?
Easy. I hired a detective. Told them my lover wouldn't give me her address, so they believed it and found out for me. But I was surprised. You remarried a doctor, huh? After the money?
He lied to the detective, pretending I was his lover to get my address. They even found out that my husband is a psychiatrist. I was shocked that was even possible. I asked why he hired a detective.
If Pam is in her first year of high school, that means she was born 16 years ago, right? I had a hunch.
Yes, she's your daughter. I found out after our divorce.
I knew it. I thought she looked like me. My daughter Haley is smart and pretty too, but can't compare to Pam, the famous model.
I couldn't understand how he could say such things about his own daughter he once bragged about. I told him to stay away and not come near us.
What are you talking about? You and Pam are meant to be with me. I will come to pick you up tomorrow. Be at home, or who knows what will happen.
Is that a threat?
Not a threat. If you could have kids, You should have just said so. We could have gotten back together, and my mom would have been happy. Why didn't you tell me?
Back then, I was emotionally unstable. Finding out I was pregnant was a relief, but I feared he would ask me to return if I told him. Tears welled up as I remembered those days, deciding to raise her alone. I didn't tell you because I thought returning to you would only bring more pain, I replied, and he became aggressive.
Pain? What was so painful? Are you saying I was a problem? Or my mom? You are always blaming others and running away. Just leave that guy and come back to me with Pam, understand?
He hung up abruptly, so we went to the police with a recording. They promised to patrol our area the next day, offering some peace of mind. Nathan explained the situation at work and took another day off. But that night, Mason called Nathan's phone. It sounded like Helen was there too. I recorded the call for safety and answered the phone.
Hey, I called because I have a proposal about our talk earlier. Is your husband there?
Yes, he's here. What kind of proposal?
Good. That will make this quick. Since you and Pam will be coming to me, Helen and your husband are going to be lonely, right? So I was thinking, your husband could look after Helen and Haley.
I was completely lost at what he was trying to say. Helen seems to be okay with the idea, thinking if it meant marrying a wealthy man, it was fine by her. Both my husband and I couldn't follow their bizarre logic, just exchanging confused glances. I made it clear that I had no intention of divorcing Nathan or having anything to do with Mason in the future, which made Helen raise her voice. Katie, are you out of your mind? Your husband would definitely prefer me. I'm younger and prettier. Plus, I quit my job at the part-time place because I heard I was going to marry someone rich. You quitting your job was your own decision. You get back with Mason, and I become the wife of a rich man. See? It's perfect. You're so selfish. Mason's words were one thing, but hers made no sense either. The real selfishness was on their part. And the idea of my husband falling for Helen was utterly unthinkable. Back then, maybe, but now she's 3 times the size she was when I first met her, and her skin was a mess. Her face is covered in thick foundation, bright red lipstick, and the smell of her perfume was suffocating. She was the complete opposite of my husband's type, and her personality, along with her gold digging, made her unappealing. No man in his right mind would fall for someone like that. Just as we were at a loss for words, a loud voice came through the phone. Enough! You adults are so embarrassing. How much more do you plan to trouble others? It's shameful. I've been putting up with this until now, but I can't anymore. It seems Haley was shouting at her parents. Despite being raised by such parents, she turned out to be quite sensible. I'm going to Grandma's house. I can't live with you anymore. I realized you were calling them and immediately contacted the child welfare services and the police. They will be here soon. I've decided to cut ties with you. At 16, Haley was old enough to make her own decisions. Mason and Helen, flustered by their daughter's words, neglected our call, allowing me to quietly hang up. That night, Mason and Helen showed up at our house.
Open up! Haley's gone, so I can't live with you now. Let's live together, just the 3 of us. You, me, and Pam. Pam is much better than that rebellious daughter of mine.
Nathan, let's have some fun together, so open the door, will you? I can still have children, you know. They were banging on the door, and ringing the doorbell incessantly, shouting these things. Nathan and I went to the door, but didn't open it, with him firmly telling them off.
Enough! I have no plans to leave Katie, and Pam is genuinely our child now. We've already called the police on you.
Despite this, Mason and Helen didn't leave, thinking it was a bluff.
Haley was quite something, but Pam is even better. She has got bigger boobs too. If you want, I could just date Pam with me.
Are you looking at my daughter sexually?
Because she's a good woman. Women are women. What I do with my own is my business. What's wrong with that?
His comments were horrifying. He viewed his daughter merely as a female object. Helen, too, seemed okay with the whole thing, not challenging Mason's views. They were despicable. Just as we were concerned about the disturbance at the front door, the police arrived. They seemed not to have expected the police actually to come, and got caught while trying to escape.
I just came to pick up my daughter. I've done nothing wrong.
Me too. I haven't done anything. I just came to pick up my prince, so let go of me. They were desperately trying to escape, claiming innocence. But Mason got aggressive and pushed one of the officers, leading to their arrest for assaulting a police officer. I was relieved my daughter wasn't there to witness this. It would have traumatized her. A week later, Haley came to visit us. It seems she had relied on an address Mason had noted down. She stood at the front door wanting to apologize, so I invited her in for coffee. While trying to hold back tears, she revealed the truth about her past. She had endured mild abuse from her father Mason, while her mother Helen turned a blind eye, essentially abandoning her care. She hardly ever ate proper meals, surviving mostly on potato chips and cookies. School lunches provided some relief until middle school, and on weekends, she would escape to her grandmother's house. Helen's parents were strict and had forbidden Mason and Helen from coming near. But they doted on Haley, allowing her the freedom to visit. Haley had never been able to speak up about the treatment she received. All the while, Helen's parents were the ones funding her education. As she entered high school, Mason and Helen's behavior escalated. Seeing no end to her suffering, she witnessed them loudly calling us and immediately contacted the police and child welfare services. She confided in Helen's parents, who had told her she could live with them from now on. I'm so sorry for all the trouble my parents have caused you. Pam has always been someone I looked up to, and I just had to apologize. Sorry for dropping in so suddenly. You're a victim in this too, so you have nothing to apologize for. It must have been hard for you. Smiling, she assured, I will be okay from now on. After some casual conversation, it turned out Pam would be transferring to Haley's high school. You can rely on me if you need anything, I said, giving her my contact information before she left in the evening. That night, after Nathan and Pam returned, I shared Haley's visit and her story with them. Pam was excited about her new school, and we continued with our moving preparations. The move went smoothly, and Pam's transfer process was completed without any issues. Haley later informed us that her parents had been sentenced to prison. In addition to abuse, they had committed theft and other disruptive acts, with numerous charges brought against them. They wouldn't be out for several years, which was a relief. Even when they were released, the burden of significant debt meant they couldn't lead a normal life. Helen's parents had cut ties with Mason and Helen, and although Mason's parents cherished their granddaughter, they had not provided financial support and had also distanced themselves due to the ongoing issues. Mason's parents were heartbroken at being cut off from their granddaughter. Since then, our lives have been peaceful. Haley has become much more cheerful and happier. She and Pam have become good friends, spending weekends together, and even having sleepovers. Infertility is a sensitive issue, and it's unfair to jump to conclusions. Like others, I felt pressured and distressed by comments from those around me. So, in a way, Mason, Helen, and Mason's parents have only themselves to blame. I hope for nothing more than for our family to continue living peacefully.